The crimson sands of Kepler 442b stretched endlessly beneath the dying binary suns, painted with the aftermath of the most brutal conflict the galaxy had witnessed in 3 centuries. Smoke rose from the twisted wreckage of starships, both human, and Zephyrians scattered across the battlefield like metallic bones. Commander Sarah Chun crouched behind the remnants of her drop pod, plasma rifle cooling in her hands. The last of the Zephyrian assault force had retreated an hour ago, leaving behind only the acrid smell of ozone and the groans of dying machinery. She was alone, the sole survivor of the 47th Expeditionary Force. A low, rumbling growl made her freeze. 20 meters away, partially concealed by the wreckage of a Zephyrian battlecruiser, emerged the most fearsome creature Sarah had ever encountered. The Korthik was massive, 3 meters tall at the shoulder, with obsidian scales that seemed to absorb light itself. Its 6 legs moved with predatory grace, each ending in claws that could slice through reinforced titanium. Twin rows of crystalline spines ran along its back, crackling with bioelectric energy. Sarah had read the briefings. Korthrax were the Zephyrian Empire's ultimate weapon, genetically engineered, apex predators with intelligence rivaling sentient species, capable of tracking prey across star systems and immune to most conventional weapons. One Korthrak could devastate an entire human battalion. The creature's 4 amber eyes locked onto hers. Sarah raised her rifle, knowing it was useless. Plasma bolts barely scratched Korthrak hide, but the beast didn't attack. Instead, it limped closer, and Sarah saw the massive gash across its flank, dark blood seeping through the scales. Behind it, moving with uncertain steps, came 2 smaller shaped cubs, barely a quarter the size of their parent, their scales still soft and gray. The adult Korthrak collapsed just 5 meters from Sarah's position. Its breathing was labored, each exhale creating small clouds of vapor in the thin atmosphere. With tremendous effort, it lifted its great head and looked directly at Sarah. In those ancient eyes, she saw something impossible: intelligence, desperation, and unmistakably a parent's love. The creature made a series of low, harmonic sounds, not the terrifying roar Sarah expected, but something softer, almost musical. The cubs responded with high-pitched chirps, pressing themselves against their dying parent. Sarah lowered her weapon. Military protocol screamed at her to finish the wounded predator. But something deeper, something fundamentally human stayed her hand. The adult Korthrak's eyes found hers again. Slowly, painfully, it pushed the 2 cubs towards Sarah with its snout. The message was unmistakable. Please, take care of him. With a final shuddering breath, the great beast died. The cubs huddled together, lost and afraid. They couldn't have been more than a few weeks old, their bioelectric spines dim and inactive. Sarah found herself moving toward them before conscious thought kicked in. "This is insane," she muttered, but knelt beside the orphan creatures anyway. The cubs flinched at first, but hunger and instinct overrode fear. When Sarah offered them emergency rations from her pack, they devoured the protein bars with desperate enthusiasm. She fashioned a shelter from debris and salvaged heating elements, creating a warm space where the cubs could rest. Days passed. Sarah's rescue beacon remained silent. If anyone was coming, it would be weeks before they arrived. The cubs, whom she'd named Storm and Shadow for their different behavioral patterns, grew stronger under her care. Storm was bold and curious, constantly exploring their makeshift camp. Shadow was cautious but affectionate, often curling up against Sarah while she slept. What amazed Sarah most was their intelligence. Within a week, they understood basic hand signals. Storm learned to help gather salvageable materials, while Shadow proved adept at warning her of approaching dust storms. They were learning her language, responding to their names, and displaying problem-solving skills that surpassed most Earth mammals. But Sarah's supplies were dwindling. The cubs needed more food than her rations could provide, and their growth rate was accelerating. She watched them play fight with increasing concern even as juveniles. Their claws could shred metal. On the 10th day, Storm brought her something, a small metallic object half buried in the sand. Sarah's breath caught. It was a Zephyrian. communication device, still functional. Storm had somehow recognized it as important and retrieved it for her. That night, as dust devils danced across the crimson landscape, Sarah made a decision that went against every piece of military training she'd received. She activated the Zephyrian communicator. The response came within hours. A Zephyrian search vessel descended from the storm-clouded sky, its sleek hull bristling with weapons. Sarah stood in the open, the cubs flanking her protectively despite their size. The ship's boarding ramp lowered, revealing a squad of Zephyrian warriors in their characteristic crystalline armor. Their leader, distinguished by elaborate ceremonial markings, approached cautiously. Sarah raised her empty hands but didn't retreat. "I have something that belongs to you," she said, hoping the universal translator would convey her meaning. The Zephyrian commander's reptilian features showed confusion, then shock as he saw the cubs. He spoke rapidly in his native tongue, and Sarah caught familiar harmonic tones similar to the sounds the adult Korthrak had made. The cubs responded immediately, chirping and trilling in the same musical language. But they didn't run to the soldiers. Instead, they moved closer to Sarah, Storm placing his small body between her and the armed Zephyrians. The commander stared in disbelief. Through the translator, his voice was filled with wonder. They speak of you as Pack Mother. They say you fed them, protected them, taught them. This is impossible. Korthrak's bond only with Zephyrians, and only after years of conditioning. Maybe, Sarah said quietly, you've been thinking about bonding all wrong. The commander studied her for a long moment. You are human, we are at war. Yet you saved our young ones. They weren't enemy combatants, Sarah replied. They were just scared kids who'd lost their parent. The Zephyrian's scaled head tilted a gesture Sarah had learned indicated deep thought in their species. We have monitored your interactions through the cubs' biosignatures. You have shown them more genuine care in 10 days than most Zephyrian handlers provide in months. They have imprinted on you completely. Sarah felt a pang of loss she hadn't expected. Will you take them home? That is complicated. The commander gestured to his subordinates, who lowered their weapons. A Korthrak bonded to a human. It has never occurred before. The implications are staggering. Storm approached the commander cautiously, then looked back at Sarah with those intelligent amber eyes. Shadow pressed against her leg, purring a sound Sarah had never heard a Korthrak make. Perhaps, the commander said slowly, this war has taught us to fear each other when we should have been learning from each other instead. The rescue ship that arrived 3 days later found something unprecedented. A human soldier and 2 Korthrak. Cubs aboard a Zephyrian vessel, with representatives from both species engaged in the first genuine peace talks in over a century years later. Xenobiologists would study the Chin cubs as they came to be known, trying to understand how 2 species could form such an extraordinary bond. But Sarah knew the truth was simpler than any scientific explanation. Love, it turned out, was a universal language, and sometimes the most profound victories came not from defeating your enemies, but from caring for their children. The galaxy would never be the same.